Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to our final webinar in the Navigating Digital Transformation in Libraries series. I'm so happy to see many of you joining us from across Europe. So a couple of quick practical notes before we begin. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you need captions, they are available, and if you need a translation, you can activate Zoom simultaneous interpretation via the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred language. We'll have time for questions at the end, but please don't wait. You can type your questions in the Q&A as we go along. So this series, organized by EBLIDA as part of the European Library Association Network, has brought us together to share experiences, swap ideas, and learn from each other about how libraries are responding to the fast-moving world of digital change. My name is Gwynnie Vlaming, and I'm one of the experts in the digital transformation group of the ELAN project, and I have the pleasure of being your host today. Over the past two webinars, we explored two very different but complementary aspects of digital transformation in libraries. The first session focused on how libraries can reach new audiences through well-designed digital strategies. We learned how crucial it is for libraries to be able to manage and shape their own digital front ends. The second session dove into libraries tackling AI challenges, where we looked at real-life experiments that turned AI into an opportunity. We learned, for example, about Berlin's chatbot project that helps guide users through the library catalog. And today, we get to close the series with another truly crucial theme, digital inclusion. Because digital inclusion is not just about technology or innovation, it's also about people and working together. And the examples you will hear today will demonstrate that. They show how digital strategies only truly succeed when they are rooted in the real needs of communities. Think, for example, of the parent who walks into the library because they can't access the school platform, or the older adult who needs help using secure authentication tools, or the teenager who has a broken laptop at home and relies on library computers for homework. These are the moments where digital inclusion becomes real. Libraries step in by offering free access to technology, support digital skill development, guide vulnerable users step by step, and create safe, trusted learning spaces where people can move at their own pace. We all know the themes, the digital walk-in hours, the one-on-one sessions, the digi workshops. So the big question for today is, how can libraries approach digital inclusion in a structured, strategic, and sustainable way? And that's exactly what we will explore through the Compass for Digital Inclusion, a framework developed with Flemish public libraries to help them map what they are really already doing, identify new opportunities, and make deliberate choices that fit their local context. So here you can see an overview of what you can expect in today's webinar. We will begin by briefly outlining what we mean by digital inclusion and why it's such a crucial part of library work today. Then we will look at the situation in Flanders. And next we'll hear how the Compass for Digital Inclusion was created through co-creation with libraries. We will also see how the tool works in practice and what impact it's already having. And finally, we'll zoom out to Germany to hear how another library network adapted the model to their own context. So you can expect a mix of strategy, practical tools, and real-life experiences. I'm very happy to be joined today by three excellent speakers. First of all, my two colleagues, Koen van den Driessen, Innovation Manager at Cultuur Connect, and Justine Rose, Project Manager, Digital Inclusion and Community Manager at Cultuur Connect, and Sylvia Wormelker, Coordinator Digital Media Literacy at the Berlin Public Library Network. So without further ado, let's dive in and welcome our first speakers, Justine and Koen from Cultuur Connect. Koen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Koen and I work for Cultuur Connect. So let me quickly explain who we are. Cultuur Connect is a non-profit organization commissioned by the Flemish government. And in Flanders, we support the culture houses of all Flemish municipalities, especially with their digital challenges. So we work for 300 municipalities that make up Flanders, and that's the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium, in case you didn't know. Um, so Cultuurconnect mainly works with both the public libraries and also with the cultural and community centers. And the people here from Cultuurconnect all work for the public libraries. As Cultuurconnect, we build and maintain the digital infrastructure. So, for example, we are responsible for the library system and for the library catalog. And we also work together with the libraries to look at the future. So we work together on innovation and we build new services together. And finally, we also have a role in advancing the digital maturity of the library sector. As Cultuurconnect, we work in a particular way. So we don't see our libraries as clients or customers that sign up for the services we build. Instead, we choose to operate as if we are a corporation. So we are not a corporation in the strict legal sense, but we decided to treat the libraries as if as the real owners of the services they sign up for. So that means that the libraries decide what their money is used on, and also they make all the strategic choices for the library services. And new services are always co-created together with the libraries. Finally, these libraries also decide what the innovation priorities for Cultuurconnect are. So, and that's exactly how a couple of years ago, the libraries decided that digital inclusion deserved a new focus. And at the end of that, the compass for digital inclusion is the very concrete result of this. But before we do that, let's take a step back and look at the situation in Flanders. How does the digital inclusion landscape look like? And what role do the public libraries play? First, some numbers and maybe a spoiler. When we compare ourselves to the European average, we are doing actually quite well. But maybe another spoiler, it's not the whole story. So, for example, let's take internet access. In 2023, 96% of households in Flanders had internet at home. That's a bit higher than the European average of 94%. So that's not perfect, but it's quite high nonetheless. And that was in 2023. By now, probably the number is 97 or 98%. When we look at information and data skills, we see that Flanders is on the right track as well. According to this research, 89% of the people have at least basic digital skills, and that's compared to the 86 on the European average, so also slightly higher. And finally, if we talk about online safety, that's of course an area that is becoming more and more important. Here we see that 69% of the people in Flanders have at least basic online safety skills, and that's on par with the European average. That's 70%. So all in all, that's not quite bad. But then there is this number, and this number means that 40% of Belgians still remain digitally vulnerable, either because they do not use the internet or they lack sufficient good digital skills or they struggle with online services. And that's a very broad problem. And often it's related to lower incomes or to lower education levels or to health problems, for example. And this digital vulnerability has real dangers. It puts people at risk of exclusion in the digital society, and the exclusion has very concrete consequences financially, socially, also psychologically. So there is still a lot of work to be done. So it's no surprise then that in Flanders, a wide range of organizations are actively working on digital inclusion and on media literacy. So we have for example, the training providers. These are the centers for basic education, for example, who support adults in building essential skills, but we also have organizations focused on children and young people to helping them navigate the digital world. And we have some umbrella organizations, and those inspire, set the direction, and bring partners together. And beyond that, there are still countless initiatives, smaller projects, big projects, local actors, and they each contribute to a piece of the puzzle. So, and this landscape also received a major boost after the pandemic because thanks to European recovery funds, a lot of extra collaborations and projects sparkled. Of course, the libraries also have an important role to play. Already, a lot of people in Flanders clearly know how to find their way to the library when they are stuck on something digital, or as one visitor put it, I often come by when I have a question about a website I need to log into, or when I receive documents stating that I need to take care of certain things digitally. And that's also proven in the numbers. This one is in Dutch, but the top bar says 15% of the library staff reports that they receive digital questions every single day. 42% of them report that they receive digital questions several times a week. Another 42% says they get digital questions weekly, and almost nobody says they never receive digital questions. So I'm sure you will recognize this. These kind of questions are already part of the daily rhythm of the library work. And of course, libraries do much more than that. So many questions about the digital world are answered there, but there are also a lot of different ways to enhance your digital skills in the library. And in many libraries, not in all, but in a lot of libraries, you can also get acquainted with new technologies. So I think by now it should be clear that in Flanders we have a very rich landscape when it comes to digital inclusion in Flanders, and that the libraries definitely have an important role to play within it. So then you might ask, so why or what exactly was the problem then, and that the libraries wanted to us to address? Well, first of all, they were looking for a sense of direction. So even though libraries do a lot, they are not always sure whether they are doing the right things. So there's also when you look at future, there's a great deal of uncertainty about what the future will bring, what will be expected of them then, and also how the roles of the library will evolve. On top of that, the libraries often feel they are not recognized enough for their contribution to digital inclusion. So what they do is often not very visible. They just do it, and next to all the other things they do. So that means that a lot of patrons don't see what they do on digital inclusion, and maybe even worse, their contribution is not always recognized by the local or the higher authorities. And especially when it comes to shaping structural policies and allocating resources, the libraries don't feel like they're at the front of the line. So that means on the floor, they help people every day. So they do much more than they get credit for. And when decisions on funding are made, when decisions are on the table or funding is on the table, they are often left out. So that was exactly the combination of problems. So not being sure if they are doing the right things and not feeling recognized, that's exactly the challenge we wanted to tackle. So maybe also another important disclaimer, as Culture Connect, we don't have direct influence on the policy decisions or on how resources are distributed. That's simply not our mandate, unfortunately. But even so, we believe that the compass we created helps the libraries to the libraries to make clear choices and to decide on a direction. So it makes their contribution also more visible and easier to communicate. And I probably don't have to tell you that like a clear message is a very important advantage when you are looking for recognition or for resources. So how did we do it exactly? And that's a part my colleague Justine will tell you.
Yes, thank you, Koen. Uh, I can tell you we've traveled quite a long road from those early explorations all the way to the campus as a concrete result. Um, took several steps. To start, we reached out to other players in the field. From day one, our goal was very clear. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's already so much expertise out there, so we really wanted to build on that. We connected with organizations working on digital inclusion. We listened to their insights and we mapped out what was already happening. Then next, we organized an inspiration day. Um, it was our moment to really officially kick off the project and gather input on the needs and challenges libraries were facing around digital inclusion. We brought 89 librarians around the table, which we thought was a fantastic turnout. Important to notice is we didn't do this alone. We teamed up with Mediawijs and VWSG, two organizations you already saw appear on the screen. They are major players in the digital inclusion landscape in Flanders, and we really wanted to work together with them. Then came the summer of 2024. It was a period where we really dove deep into the topic. We visited a wide range of libraries, big ones, small ones, urban, rural, really libraries with very different levels of experience in digital inclusion. We also organize workshops to understand what libraries do and don't see as part of their role. And we ask them which initiatives they're proud of and how they picture the future of digital inclusion in the library. Those conversations gave us a really rich picture to build upon. And then, as a fourth and a really crucial step, we put together a project group that followed the entire process closely. We met with them every 1 to 2 months, and together with that project group, we finally arrived at a product that was ready to launch. But don't be fooled by how small the step from phase 4 to 5 looks, because in reality, it was really a step that took about 7 months. It was 7 months of circling back, of new proposals, of rounds of feedback, of refined ideas and more feedback, and then adjusting everything again. So it was a long loop, but really a necessary one to get the model right. Obviously, we are incredibly grateful to our project group. They were essential in this project. It's thanks to the time they invested. It's thanks to their critical eye, their thoughtful attention, that we were really able to create something useful for the libraries in Flanders. So instead of talking about them, we'd prefer to let them speak for themselves, to share their experience and to reflect on what we ultimately achieved together. So we have a short video.
Wij zijn vandaag samen hier in Muntpunt met de werkgroep Digitale Inclusie. We hebben al een vrij lang traject doorlopen en dus zijn we eigenlijk een round-up of een samenvatting aan het doen van alle onderdelen die eerder aan bod kwamen.
We merkten dat er op sectorniveau een visie rond digitale inclusie ontbrak. Terwijl er in het algemeen wel al heel veel bestaat van materiaal rond digitale inclusie, maar dat dat niet altijd op maat van de bibliotheken was.
En dan hebben we samen met Cultuurconnect gezorgd dat die info die dat we met al onze hoofden bij elkaar brachten, dat dat ook iets in het praktisch te gieten was. Verstaanbaar voor kleine, middelgrote en grote bibliotheken.
We noemen het een kompas. Het is eigenlijk een soort van model dat bibliotheken kunnen gebruiken en dan aftoetsen van wat doe ik al, wat doe ik niet, waarom doe ik dat, waar wil ik naartoe gaan, wat is er voor mij mogelijk als bibliotheek.
Als bibliotheek zijn er heel veel mogelijkheden om die digitale rol te gaan innemen. Heel veel partnerorganisaties of overheidsinstanties kijken al naar de bibliotheek om die rol op te nemen. Dus dan is het heel belangrijk dat iedereen voldoende handvaten heeft om echt met die soms wat opgedrongen rol aan de slag te gaan.
40% van de Vlamingen is niet mee op de digitale sneltrein. Alle bibliotheken hebben ook de maatschappelijke opdracht om mensen te helpen de wereld beter te begrijpen. Leesplezier stimuleren, maar evengoed digitale vaardigheden stimuleren is een opdracht van ons als bibliotheken.
Het idee van een kompas is er gekomen, vooral als metafoor, dat het niets is dat opgelegd zal worden.
Vooral kleinere bibliotheken, die hebben het heel dikwijls moeilijk om te bewijzen dat ze nog belangrijk zijn in onze maatschappij. En ik denk dat dit een pad is dat zij kunnen bewandelen om nog aan te tonen, een bibliotheek is belangrijk in onze gemeente. Die betekent iets, die kunnen iets betekenen voor de burger. En daar moet op ingezet worden.
Voor mij is het doel van het hele project en van de vele gesprekken die we gehad hebben met de bibliotheken, om hen voeding te geven, om na te denken, om te reflecteren over die rol en om die plek echt te gaan claimen in het lokaal landschap. Want nu wordt die rol wel heel vaak opgenomen, maar niet altijd erkend zoals zou moeten.
Op die manier kunnen we het kwaliteitsniveau gelijk trekken voor alle bibliotheken. Niet om iedereen op dezelfde manier te werken, maar wel vanuit een gelijk kwaliteitsvol kader te vertrekken.
Now you got an overview from the project group and the process. And after giving you some insights in how we created the compass, I'd now like to shift gears and explain what the compass actually is. So it's the digital compass, the digital inclusion compass for libraries is one central digital space. It's a place where you can explore no fewer than 26 different roles that libraries can play in the field of digital inclusion. And it also includes a tool that lets you create a tailored selection of roles for your own local library. So instead of guessing where to focus, libraries can explore, choose, and shape a profile that truly fits their context. And if you're curious to explore the digital place yourselves, this is the URL where you can find everything and discover the content firsthand. I believe the URL will also be shared in the chat. What I really would like to show you is that we, because we know 26 roles, it's a lot. We didn't just drop those 26 roles in this digital place. We built those roles onto a structure that already existed. These are pillars that other partners in the field were already using. I already talked about VBSG and MediaWijs. They definitely also played a part in defining those pillars. Those pillars are access, support and service, skill building and participation in the local network, and they give the model really a clear and recognizable and of course also a shared foundation. I will walk you briefly through each one. So access, it is focused on creating a place where everyone can connect, use or simply explore digital devices. Support and service is focused on how libraries set the tone by offering a clear online information and accessible digital service, and how they are there with the right support when people need help. Building skills is focused on giving people opportunities to build their digital skills, whether they're absolute beginners or they are already more advanced. There's something for everyone. And then participation in the local network, that pillar is focused on working together with partners to embed digital inclusion structurally within the local ecosystem. Because as I am sure you're all aware of, no one can tackle that digital inclusion challenge alone. On top of that, so on top of those 4 pillars, we also made a clear distinction between essential roles and optional roles. So on the one hand, we have the optional roles. I want to stress that libraries are not obliged to take on these roles, but we saw that in practice, you will find that these essential roles, they exist in virtually every library in Flanders. By giving them the label essential, we wanted to emphasize that these roles form the solid foundation that make digital inclusion possible within a library context. On the other hand, we added a set of optional roles, and those you have to read as possibilities that let libraries shape an approach tailored to the needs of their municipality. So we applied that structure of essential and optional roles on the 4 pillars. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about all of the 26 roles today, but what I will do is highlight 2 roles from each pillar, one essential role and one optional role, just to show the range in which a library can engage with digital inclusion. By looking at only 2 examples per pillar, I'll try to give you a sense of how diverse the roles are and also how flexible the model is for different local contexts. I'll start with the pillar access. So what you see here are 2 examples of roles within this pillar, one essential role and one optional role. The essential role I wanted to highlight here is the library as a digital connection point. So this is the baseline. It's a place where people can get online, use a computer, print, or scan the documents they need. And as an optional role, I wanted to share the library as an unlocking point. So in this role, the library gives people access to professional and, of course, often sometimes expensive software. So things they might not have or be able to afford at home. So I hope that those 2 roles show how broad the access pillar is. Although at first glance, you think about access, this pillar may seem straightforward. In reality, we found that there are always opportunities tailored to local needs. Then let's move on to the second pillar, the support and service pillar. Here again, I'm showing you one essential role and one optional role, just to illustrate how libraries can support people in very different ways. The essential role I wanted to show you here is the library as a first aid point. Of course, not for bandages, but this is the place where people turn to when they need help with digital library services. So think about anything from logging into your library profile to using the online catalog, to lending ebooks, or to make an online reservation. It's the everyday support that libraries provide regarding their digital services. It's oftentimes seen as business as usual, but we thought, and also the project group thought, it was very useful to highlight it as a role to show that it's something that takes time out of the day of librarians, and that there is a need for every librarian to learn how to use the digital library services themselves. And then as an optional role, on the other hand, I selected the library as a learning space for digital helpers. So in this role, the library just the library doesn't help the citizens; it supports the helpers themselves. So it becomes a place where the helpers, as we call them in Flanders, they can learn, they can exchange experiences, they can strengthen their own skills. So within this pillar, you see a broad variety. There is direct support for users to building the capacity of people who support others with a wide range of digital questions, not just the questions regarding digital library services. Then we move to the third pillar. This is a skill building. Again, I highlight one essential and one optional role. So we'll start with the essential one, that is the library as a digital coach for staff. This is a more inward-facing role. The library becomes a place where the team itself can strengthen its digital skills. Because if the staff feel confident in the digital world, they can help others much more effectively. And then on the other side, there is the library as a learning space for beginners. This is where the library opens the digital world to people who are just starting out. It's a space where they can explore devices, they can try out applications, they can learn at their own pace. And then we arrive at the fourth pillar, which is the local network. As an essential role, there is the library as a discussion partner. This means the library has a seat at the table whenever digital inclusion is being discussed locally. And then as an optional role, there is the library as a front runner. So the library really takes the lead in digital inclusion. It becomes the driving force behind digital inclusion in the municipality. So it's initiating projects, it's bringing partners together, it's pushing the agenda forward. So you see here the difference between being present in the network and actually leading the network. It's an example of how the model leaves room for the own ambitions of the local library. So I hope now you have a sense of how broad and flexible the compass is and how libraries can shape their own path within it. But of course, I think the key question is, how do you actually use this compass in practice? And for that, we developed a tool. We've broken the process down in 4 steps to help libraries make the compass their own. The first step is defining your starting point. So this is where you take a moment to look at your current situation. So what is your library? Get a clear picture that gives you a solid foundation for everything that follows. Then in the second step, that step is all about orientation. In this step, you take a moment to answer a few questions, guiding questions that help you understand your library's identity and context. We provide the questions. They're questions like which pillar feels closest to the identity of your library? What are the most pressing needs or challenges in your local context? Which target groups do we want to focus on first? So really questions to reflect on, so you create a sense of direction that helps you make meaningful choices later on in the process. Then step 3. Step 3 is to determine your direction. Here you start making choices. So which roles match your local context, your ambitions, and the needs of your municipality. This is where the compass really becomes tailored to your situation. We tried to make it fun by adding a sticker set to the tool with stars, plants, and broken hearts. So you can really identify which roles you want to continue and which roles you don't want to take on. Because the tool, it's with a big poster and a sticker set. So you can really gather around the table to have that conversation. This third step is really important because making choices was really the goal of the whole compass. The message really isn't take on each of the 26 roles, but rather take an in-depth look and choose which roles you're going to focus on as a library. And then there's a fourth step to start moving. It's time to put everything into action. We don't prescribe a fixed route, but we help, or we hope that the compass helps to move forward in a way that's realistic and meaningful for your library. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Justine, for walking us through the Compass for Digital Inclusion. It was interesting to hear not only about the tool itself, but also about the co-creation journey behind it. I have to say that what really stands out is how the framework is grounded in practice. It's built at libraries, tested in the field, and refined through collaboration. And I think that brings us to a very interesting next step, because a tool becomes truly powerful when it travels, when it proves that it can be adapted to a different context. And so now we move from Flanders to Berlin. And I'm very pleased to invite Sylvia Vormelker to share how the Compass for Digital Inclusion inspired work in Germany.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I am very happy to be here today and send warm greetings from the sunny Berlin. I work for the, in German, Verbund der öffentlichen Bibliotheken Berlins, or FÖB, as a digital literacy and media education advisor. But today I also speak as a member of a working group inside a committee that focuses on digital media offers for adults and has been working since last year on adapting the compass for digital inclusion. That is why I have deliberately not brought any figures on the use of our digital offerings with me, and I'm speaking primarily from the perspective of employees who need to learn to understand digital inclusion as an umbrella term for all their digital activities. So now I will tell you why we do the adaptation and how. When my colleague Sarah, also a member of the mentioned working group, and I first met Justine and Kuhn last year at the Next Library conference in Aarhus, we were in the process of developing a mission statement for the field of digital literacy ourselves. Before I say more about that, let me give you a short introduction to the FÖB. The FÖB is an association of Berlin's public libraries. From the very beginning, shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the goal was to build a strong shared digital infrastructure. Today, our main achievements are the shared library card, the shared online catalog, and a common digital collection. All these services were set up centrally. Nevertheless, local libraries and their employee played a major role in this process. This is because they not only give access to the infrastructure, but also help users to build their digital skills in many different ways. This infrastructure and the use of digital devices in libraries grow almost every day, and so does the knowledge of the people who work on it. We can clearly see the trend goes from generalist to more and more specialist. And it was in this situation we, the members of the mentioned working group, were asked to develop a mission statement on digital literacy for adults in FÖB. So we knew that we could not start a big process to include everyone. So we wrote a paper that described our ideas about digital media education. We later found that some of these ideas were also part of the compass from Flanders. I'll come back to that later. We also made a matrix and, let's say, a half-finished workshop to help colleagues to go from their first idea to a real event. However, this paper was strongly focused on our own area of adult education. I would almost say without us being aware of it, because we explicitly mentioned other areas like public services. When we met Justine and Kuhn in Aarhus, they helped us to open our view. The concept of the compass, the show 4 pillars with 26 different roles, as you just learned. Oh, sorry. Yeah. During Kuhn's and Justine's rather short presentation, we noticed other positive features on the compass that convinced us. We understood that it is easier for employees to identify with roles than with long lists of abstract skills. And that for a network like the one in Flanders, which is quite similar to ours, a common language is a great help. Using the same terms makes communication between all areas easier. We understood also that the campus also gives all employees the opportunity to participate, even if they do not have any special digital or IT skills. And last but not least, that every library, large or small, can use the roles to highlight its own priorities. So back in Berlin, I waited for the official release of the compass and started an AI-based translation to analyze and to get to know the material. In the summer 2025, our working group tested the reflection workshop, the tool Justine just presented. 3 groups met twice for 2 hours each. We quickly saw that the compass structure works very well and is easy to apply, ideal for eternal reflection. At the same time, we realized that the role descriptions from Flanders could not simply be translated for Berlin's library system. We therefore needed to create our own version, adapted to our context and working culture. So next step, we met with Justine and Koen to gain a better understanding of the background of the compass and discuss a possible adaptation. And I must say, we were met with open arms. Since then, we have working on a cultural translation. And this is not an easy process. The conceptual revision took almost 3 months. We used our earlier work to focus on the skills development part, and now we plan to include colleagues from the other areas so they can check the description, make corrections, and add their own examples. So right in this moment, we are beginning an interview phase with colleagues from other committees. Finally, we plan to invite all interview partners in the summer of 2026 to review the results together. This will help us avoid blind spots and make joint decisions on open questions. We also hope that this will enable all participants to identify even more strongly with the compass when it is published. I would like to conclude my contribution by talking about the impact we hope to achieve by using Compass. As initiative leaders, we hope to develop a powerful tool that can be put to immediate use. The structure works everywhere, and the method, especially the reflection workshop, can be used directly. It also helps us to organize and explain the participation of our colleagues better, and we are happy to say we can use the material for free. But we should be realistic. It does not really save time. The main work is a cultural translation to the text, of the texts. A simple word-to-word translation is not enough. We need people who can bring the ideas from the local context of our library system. Luckily, we already have all the members of our communities to join for this task. After the compass is published, of course, we also need to implement it. This means preparing materials such as the poster, keeping the compass up to date, adding examples, and supporting colleagues who want to use it in their libraries. But the compass is more than a tool for digital inclusion. If we manage to introduce it successfully, it will also help us document our work and bring together experts and specialists again, especially when larger projects start. We also see much potential for internal training. Right now, for example, the Central and Regional Library of Berlin is running a big internal training about digitalization. If the compass had already been part of it, we would see that the training covers the pillars access and service, and it could be a good idea to include skills building and partnerships next time. Participants could then see which roles they already know and which ones they want to improve. With the help of the compass, everyone can find out exactly what kind of further training they need. My personal favorite advantage is a different one. The compass is not only a to-do list, but also a not to-do list. I recently learned that it can be important to also write down what we should not do to avoid becoming overloaded. The compass helps us to think about priorities and, if necessary, to stop doing some things. This can also be a good support in discussions with supervisors who often bring new project ideas. And finally, the compass helps us to see where we can still grow. It shows clearly which roles are already strong and where new resources could be used best. That was my contribution to this panel. I hope I could give you a clear idea of how we at FEB plan to adapt the compass and why.
Thank you, Sylvia. It was really interesting to hear how you adapted the compass to your own local context. And I think it's a great example of a successful European collaboration. So if we take everything together, what would you say, Koen, are the key takeaways?
Yes, it was a very long and intense, no, not very long, but very intense process. So there's much we learned. But if I have to choose 3 takeaways, I would take the following, but I cannot change the slides yet. So first, we tried to construct a clear model, a framework, and but then we did not stop there. So we learned that the library staff is frankly not interested in a theoretical model, and also we did not have the ambition to write a scientific paper. So the framework was just the beginning. We then used the framework to make a very practical and usable tool. So we really believe that we need both things. We need and a good framework and the translation into a very practical tool. So you end up with something you can actually apply in the library and in the library practice. So the next takeaway is maybe an open door for most of you, and that is that the library is part of a network of other libraries, but also a network with other organizations. And of course, the context is very different for every library, and especially for every country. But at least we have one thing in common, and that is that the resources are very limited. So use the network. That's the message. That's the takeaway. Use your network. Try not to repeat what others are already doing, or work together with partners to realize a project and find your own meaningful role within your local context. Find your relevant place and your special added value. And determining this is really part of the exercise you do with the compass. And finally, that's how we made the compass is really bottom up. So, and we believe bottom up work really pays off. And as you have seen, that is how we did it for our own compass, but you can benefit from our work. So you are free to use the compass, as you heard, and you can adapt it to your own countries. A lot of that work is already done, but if you have to use it yourself, it's very important to repeat some of that bottom-up validation in your own country. As Sylvia told you, you still have to do the cultural translation. A very nice term, I think. So to adapt it to your own context, for example, you have to validate the roles we identified in Flanders as relevant in your country or not. So I think those are the most important takeaways we would like to share with you. And if you're interested, and if you have any questions, or if you want to use the tool, or if you just want to exchange about it, feel free to contact us. You are also free to just roam around in the website and use the AI translation to get inspired and maybe take some ideas, of course. we adapted a Creative Commons license that allows you to use all the material for free. You can also adapt it to your own context for free. That's all right. You don't have to pay us anything. So I think the only limits of the license are that you have to give us some credits where it's due, and you can also not sell it to other people. That's all the limitations there are. So of course we hope to learn something in return from your experiences in your own countries. But we are very curious to learn about that. And you don't have to wait for that to ask your questions. You can, of course, answer your questions now as well in the Q&A. So I think that's where we are now. Do we
Yeah,
have
that's correct.
Wendy?
So as Koen already mentioned, we have now time for questions from the audience. I see there are already some questions at the Q&A, but if you still have a question, you can still ask it. And we won't probably be able to cover every single question today, but I'll do my best to address the main themes. So let's look at the first one. It's a combination of a few questions. One theme we hear often across Europe is that libraries do a lot for digital inclusion, but their role isn't always fully recognized by the policymakers. Koen, based on your work, what actually helps boost visibility and recognition at a local level?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Something that really came up during our project, and I already talked a bit about this earlier. Of course, it's up to the libraries to communicate their offerings for the public very clearly. But the biggest gain is probably in the relationship with the local authorities. And one thing, at least in Flanders, libraries should do is be less humble and be more proud of what they're doing and communicate more about the real impact of what they're doing. It's not just normal. It's not just part of the normal work. It's really, it takes time. It takes resources to address all these issues. It takes away time from other things. So you should be, that should be validated. A big help could be to go really have a good talk with your local authorities to advocate for this kind of thing, and we try to help libraries with that. So in our description of the roles and in the compass, we provided good, very clear texts, good examples, descriptions of what they could be doing, and these are like copy paste ready to use texts that you can drop in your policy plans or in your communications, so you don't have to invent everything yourself. And we also have prepared slide desks about the role with good slides, with also a clear message. And for example, if you do the compass exercise and you have clear focus and ambition and a good message and a good story, let's say, of where you want to go as a library, you can use these prepared slides to adapt to your needs and have a nice clear message in a talk with your local authority. And of course, then it's up to the libraries themselves. You have to do this talk yourself. And well, but we believe you are stronger with, and you have more luggage, let's say, to go to in a talk like this, to hopefully get more recognition and more resources at the end of the line.
Okay, thank you. Very insightful. So let's move on to a question that gets to the heart of the tool itself. It's a question from the Republic of Moldova, and they are wondering whether the digital compass can help them by implementing new digitization services into their public library services. Justine, can you help them?
It's of course, I don't know which digitization services we're talking about, but I think the compass, It can help you with the choices you need to make, and to see what is the context also that needs to be okay, so you can go ahead with those processes. I'm talking about some essential roles, like the need for the staff to be trained in those services that you want to implement, because if they get questions about those services, it's just not a great feeling to always have to ask a colleague, or to have to send away someone with questions because the colleague that knows everything about the service is just not there at the moment. Then you don't go home with a good feeling after your hard day's work. But also maybe thinking about, can volunteers be meaningful in this setting? Is it helpful to implement some dedicated hours where people can ask questions about this new digital service, things like that. So there are definitely roles in the compass that can challenge you to reflect on things you need to do next to the implementation process of the digital services. And then also I think that the digital services themselves, they also can add to the role of the library in digital inclusion. And you can also reflect on what are the opportunities that those new digital services bring with them. For example, in Flanders, in a lot of the libraries, you can pay with your card, but you don't need to put it in the machine. But for my mother, for example, that's really stressful to do that in a shop, because she's afraid she will make a mistake. But in the library, there's time. She can ask the librarian to do it again, or maybe a third time. I don't know if the system allows it, but definitely she can come back and try it again another time. And that's the case with a lot of these things, like also looking something up in the online catalog. It's really the same thing as looking something up in an online web shop. So it's a chance to develop your skills in a very safe environment. And you can also, I think, frame those new digital services within that context, and also tell people about what they are learning while they are doing those new and maybe stressful, but maybe also playful and helpful things.
Thank you, Justine. So we receive a lot of compliments about the fact that the tool can be adapted to local contexts. Also someone who mentions that it can also be relevant for libraries beyond Europe. So that's good to hear. So Sylvia, you've worked on adapting the compass to the Berlin context. What is one pitfall you would warn other organizations about when they try to translate the model to their own context?
You mean what risk I see?
Yeah, risks. Yeah.
We start with the risks. I don't know. There's no risk. It's only, as I said before, you don't save time, I guess. It's as Kuhn said, you have to do a lot of rethinking, a lot of talking and evaluation of your own and context. So and I think it's an ongoing work. I may ask Justine and Kuhn, because I think it's important to not to do it once, but really to iterate and to get the new examples and all the new things you have in the library, because we are a living system. So I guess it's you have to have people who are in charge of this compass. Otherwise, it would be getting old and doesn't work that smoothly like it does now, I guess. So that's the risk, to think, I just get it from another developer and then I spare like money and time and everything. But no, it's a gift to work on with resources you have to have, I guess.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of that. And on the other hand, do you have a quick win to share? What was surprisingly easy to implement, for example?
We loved the guide for the reflections. It was really like it clicked immediately with us and all the people we showed it to. And it's not only for developing our own strategy, but it's really to be aware of what we are doing already. And that was like, we are doing this and we are doing that. And it was more, yeah, as I said, we have to reduce some of the roles because then we can get focused. And so that's really, this workshop is really a good start into the whole mindset of digital inclusion. And as I mentioned before, I think our employees, they don't think in the terms of digital inclusion for themselves. Maybe some others do it, but by um, by choosing the roles and seeing they are part of the digital inclusion, they understand that they're a part of it. Not only one librarian or one media educator that doing digital skills or something. So I think that was quick in our understanding of the compass.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question for Justine. So you've built this whole framework, but are libraries actually putting the compass to work?
Yes, so that's really great to see. Of course, it does take time to go through the exercise and to go through the 4 steps. So it's something you need to plan. You just can't say on Monday, I'm going to do this exercise, and on Tuesday, you're done. So it takes some time, but the responses were very positive for the libraries in Flanders, and more libraries are really putting the work into it. We've guided some sessions ourselves to get some connection and to feel how the libraries are using it. And those conversations were very valuable for us to learn about the campus, but I think also for the librarians themselves. It was definitely what Sylvia mentioned just now, that because you open the conversation in the library, it really clicks that it's not just the responsibility of that one person who has digital inclusion in their title, that it's something that the whole library is concerned with. And I really noticed that because we defined those 4 steps, it really gives the library some time to pause. They have a clear canvas to reflect on. I also learned that oftentimes they want to do everything. They see a lot of opportunities everywhere, but then there's always a conversation about, okay, but we only have this much hours in our week or this much money to spend. And then they can really make the choices they want to go for based on their answers on the questions. For example, there was a library who wanted to, who had the idea, oh, maybe it could be useful to experiment with some high-level digital tools in our library, such as the role I spoke about earlier, giving people access to professional software such as Adobe or professional cameras. But then when they reflected on their local context, they noticed, well, here there is a lot of social deprivation. People are coming to us to use our computers. After school, children are coming here to make their homework. So maybe in our case, it's more helpful to allocate our resources to more computers and to more basic software they can access on them. So it was an idea that they decided to let go, although it could also be a fun idea. And maybe if the questions on the reflection question, the answers on the reflection questions were different, they would have chosen to take another path. But for now, it gave them a moment to really make that choice, to say goodbye to this idea for at least the coming years. And of course, you can always come back to it if you see, well, now this is okay, and we have some more money. There's a new person with new ideas in the team. We can take on something new. And then for the future, we also we took our time to give presentations in local or in regional networks. That's better, and I hope that maybe they will use it as a tool also to have conversations on the regional level, so they can align their offer. They can build a story together around digital inclusion. And they can get to know what every library is doing in the network. That would be great to see in the coming years.
Okay, thanks a lot, Justine. So I want to thank you all for participating in this webinar. It was nice to have you around the table, Justine, Koen, and Sylvia. I want to thank our audience as well for asking all these interesting questions. And that brings us to the end of our final webinar in this series. Just a quick reminder, all 3 webinars in this Navigating Digital Transformation in Libraries series have been recorded. So if you'd like to rewatch a session or catch up on the ones you've missed, you'll be able to access the recordings afterwards. So we hope you leave today with inspiration, practical ideas, and maybe some new collaborations in mind. Thank you.